Good evening, everyone. I feel like we all have like our own little like heroic stances.
Of course, mine's evolves freaking lipstick.
I wouldn't have it any other way, personally. All right, was yours praying hands?
No, mine was I'm a little teapot.
And mine was like holding my tea gaily. That's what I do. Welcome everyone to episode number 71 of Restitching the Tapestry. It's great to have you all here tonight on this rainy evening here in Michigan. I feel like it's been raining for 500 years, but I love rain, but I need me some sunshine. I really do.
I'll be your sunshine baby.
It snowed here.
You both are my sunshine. It's snowing there? What?
It snowed here in Muskegon. Big giant flakes coming down. It was like a dream that I had about a nuclear attack. It was like exactly how it was in my dream, and I kind of got freaked out.
No, we can't have that. Well, obviously our topic is there's a lot to unpack with our topic tonight. But before we get to talking about that, let's share how we've been doing and what we've been up to lately. So who wants to go first?
Pass.
So I have a very controversial opinion. I think we need to discuss this. It's just time to discuss this. Are frozen bananas that have been blended up better than ice cream?
I don't know if I've ever had frozen bananas blended up, but they sound amazing. Have you ever done frozen grapes?
No, I have a lot of like fear foods that are fruit that I always say that I don't like them, but mostly it's because I'm afraid of eating them. And one of my fear food groups is grapes. Oh. So I heard that frozen grapes are like super delicious. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna try it, but like first my next like step is avocados.
Wonder if you could mash them like frozen grapes. If you could mash them, they'd be more like a sherbet. Sorry, no second R.
Yeah, sherbet. I was gonna say like I feel like frozen bananas would have that consistency too. Like I've never had frozen bananas, but I like bananas, so you know I would.
It's totally... so good. I blended it up with a little bit of almond milk, but you can just use regular milk. It doesn't matter. And then I threw some like dark chocolate chips in there, and I put a little squirt of Hershey's syrup. It was so good.
That sounds good.
That sounds amazing. So that's what you've been up to lately, are you right?
I've been healing my relationship with food, and I met with my nutritionist this week, and we talked about how I'm actually eating well, and that like I'm doing all of the right things that you should be doing when you want to have like a healthy diet, and that like I don't beat myself up when I eat foods that like I used to just consider bad. Like I don't get upset when I eat like ice cream or like cakes and cookies and stuff. Like usually I would like restrict after that, but like I'm kind of working through that mentally to not do that anymore. So
well, like I really admire what you're doing on your YouTube, especially because there have been points the past 2 weeks where you've been being very open and vulnerable about that journey, and I think that it's important to document that because there probably are a lot of people out there who have similar food fears and those types of journeys they're on too, you know. So I commend that a lot.
Well, we talk about diet culture on the show a lot, and I really feel like diet culture makes a lot of people like, it's not just weird about food, but just like have a weird relationship with food. And so it's like, you know, I'm just kind of mentally working through that myself.
Right. Yeah. So Sherri, what have you been up to? How have you been?
So I'm fine. Everything's fine. We're good. We're fine. I feel like I'd say that a lot.
Is it like the dog with the fire?
You can always tell when Sherri's been grading because
we're at a stressful point in the semester.
We're at a very stressful point in the semester, and let's just say some classes are doing well, some are not. And I am on the some are not right now. And it's tough. It's tough. So, you know, let's get some sponsors.
Oh my God, I love it. So for me lately, I've been packing and packing and packing. We're nearing our move, which is in about like 8 days. Well, about a couple of weeks, because we have like a window of time in which we're moving, thank God. But I'm realizing that I have so many books. I have so many. I have a full box of just poem collections, and I'm like I'm having this moment where I'm like, should I donate some of these? I don't know, maybe. But I'm probably not, because in my next office, because this is my office right now, like, my little backdrop. This backdrop is soon going to be retired for a new backdrop. And I'm hoping that my office can be like a library. Like, I want there to be lots of books in it, because I don't know, it'll look cute, but that's just me.
That would be like such a good. I'm seeing it.
I know. I'm already like, my interior designing gay is coming out on the inside.
Well, I'm also having like flashbacks back to Auntie Mame. I found books to be so decorative, don't you? My friend Donny Winter and I, well, she stepped on the ball. It was just ghastly.
Oh, you broke me.
What was her name? Insufferable girlfriend. Gloria, I think was her name, or something. I don't know. Yeah. If you've not seen Auntie Mame, that's everybody's homework now.
Sherri's assigning homework at school and homework here. I love it. So let's see who's on the chat this evening. We have Arpy is here. Hello, Arpy. It's good to see you. Lagiacris is here. And Lagiacris made it on time. Welcome. Panda Alsatian is here. Hello, my friend. Leo almost forgot about the stream. Blasphemy. But it's good to have you here. Thank you, Arpy. This is my Evanescence shirt of my 5 million Evanescence shirts. Leo, yes, these are blue light filtered glasses. Oh, Tiffany Gray is here. Hello. Oops. Lagiacris might be back and forth to watch a dog. But Tiffany is here. It's good to see you, Tiffany.
Yay. Hi, Tiffany.
And Tiffany comments on diet culture making her feel guilty sometimes. Yes. Sometimes that does have that effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, as we move forward, I'm going to go ahead and go through our show's mission statement, and then Sherri is going to talk about some current events happening. I did not forget this time. Well, we'll see what happens once I'm done with this. We live in a dynamic society where social media shapes us by creating greater opportunities for connection. It has led to a developing understanding of the adversity many marginalized communities face, the powers causing the adversity, and those who act as bystanders as those atrocities take place in real time. Our goal with this show is to make connections and have challenging conversations about social topics, current events, pop culture, and art. And together, our hope is to weave the threads of understanding with what privilege we have in order to learn, educate, and create in a world that is growing. So, yeah, welcome. So, Sherri, let's talk about some current events.
All right. I have notes, kids. So I feel like I need some news sounds in the background, like do, 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 do,
do, do, do, do.
Yeah, there we go. In today's news. So, of course, Ukraine still being attacked by Putin and his terribleness. There's nothing really new there. I saw a Reuters report that said over 20,000 people have lost their lives so far, and 10 million are displaced because of this war.
Goodness.
It is absolutely unreal. This is the 1 month mark, by the way. We've reached 1 month of war. And so that much devastation in that short amount of time. And there's no real signs of it slowing down. We're talking more sanctions with NATO and the United States. It's kind of like we're in a tough place. Like, what can you do without literally starting World War III?
So I just saw a movie tonight called Stand with Ukraine, The Guide. And it's made by a Ukrainian director about their history with Russian influence on Ukraine. But the best part about it is, if you go to see it, that all of the proceeds from the ticket sales go to funding the war in Ukraine.
Nice.
So.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we can do, right? Like, we can give to these different organizations as much as possible, as individuals. Russia, so our Secretary of State, what's his name? I've got it here in my notes. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has confirmed that Russia is guilty of war crimes too. They are now targeting civilian targets. And so over 5,000 civilians have lost their lives because of this. If that's going to ramp up our involvement, it's too early to say, but it's definitely something to keep on the radar. So sadly, no new developments, but it is still raging on. I've said many, many times, I'm really glad that my elderly Polish relatives are not alive to see this and to go through the flashbacks.
Yeah.
I heard that 3 million people are now like refugees leaving the country, and that the United States is going to take on about 500,000.
Yeah, there's a bunch of people that like can't get out because a lot of the corridors that they would have normally gone through, the humanitarian corridors, have been shut down. So there are a lot of people that are trapped as well still, that they're trying to get to and trying to get out. So it's war. It's horrific, you know. On that happy note, I got some news for you. I don't want to shock you all, but a bunch of rich white Republican males today told a Black woman that they were afraid she was too soft on sex predators. And they said this without blinking and without laughing. Like, it was totally not, it was not ironic. Yeah. So this is in the confirmation hearings of Judge Jackson. A bunch of white Republican males told her that they thought she was too soft.
Can we just like rewind time and go back in history to Judge Kavanaugh and like the amount of audacity that's going on with this situation?
Well, she managed to handle the questioning well and didn't burst into tears and tell them how much she liked beer. So that's a bonus, right? That's some improvement.
Yeah, I watched some of the exchanges, and she was like so poised and very quick to respond, despite literally dealing with blatant sexism and racism.
Misogynoir is what it's called.
She's educated. She's well-spoken. She is, well connected. Like, if you read her Wikipedia page, it is like the who's who and how to succeed in America while really trying. Like, it is like, it's impeccable. She's an impeccable trait. And yet she's being questioned about having too much empathy. Like, that would be a bad thing for a judge to have in our criminal justice system. Like, somehow that's, so I just want to say, it really feels like the Republicans are off the rails and they are saying the quiet things out loud these days. Am I the only one? Like,
no, I agree. Well, the thing is that we've just gone through a stint of time where a bully has been allowed to bully, and it's normalized that behavior. And I know that the reason why we definitely wanted to talk about that as well is because it does connect with our topic tonight.
Yeah.
Of how bullying manifests itself even into adulthood, right? Anyway, keep going.
So I have a great quote for you. You're going to like this. So this is Democratic Senator Cory Booker defended Jackson. He stood up and said to her, "You are my harbinger of hope. This country's getting better and better and better. And when that final vote happens and you ascend to the highest court in the land, I'm going to rejoice. And I'm going to tell you right now, the greatest country in the world, the United States of America, will be better because of you." How great is that, right? That he just stood up and just like, apparently she was getting teary and she was like really emotional about it because she'd just been hammered by all of these jerks. Like, beautiful, right? Beautiful.
That's a really empowering statement.
It's just really kind, and we do need people on the Supreme Court who are not going to just toe the Republican Party line. That they're going to be like fair and balanced in their decisions, and that they'll bring balance to the court, because it is very conservative right now.
Well, what frustrates me is that these same people are the first people to cry foul when they think that there is some sort of bipartisan politics taking place. Yet, if you listen to all of those questions they were asking, they were all about bipartisan politics. And numerous times, like this wonderful, amazing, and poised judge responded by saying, I have to look over the two parties, cases, and then make a determination without politics being involved,
Well, oh, sorry, go ahead, Sherri.
No, I can't remember his name, but there was one Republican senator was basically taking his time to explain to her how he thought gay marriage was icky. And, how could, do you think that it was right that it got upheld? And she was just like, really? We're having this conversation now? Like, you could see that in her head. Like, I can't believe we're focusing on, these 2 or 3 partisan things. Like, just like you were saying, like, she tried so hard to, like, take the high road, and they just kept dipping down into the gutter.
Well, and it's the double standard of the Republican Party. They expect Democrats and liberals and leftists to be like up here and to always play fair, while they get to play dirty and do dirty tricks and just be like really underhanded about stuff. And just like they'll, like Mitch McConnell, he basically said, I have a double standard. Like, I'm going with my constituents, and I will, and for sure, like, it's a double standard.
Yeah, in the last year of Obama's presidency, he wouldn't allow a justice to be brought in. He wouldn't listen to. He wouldn't bring Congress in to even listen to who Obama had. He said, "Well, this is a lame duck president in the last year. He doesn't get to pick, who the next chief justice is." And then months before the end of, I think it was even a month, right before the end of Trump's presidency, he pushed through. Right? Trump's pick, and absolutely said on the news, on record, absolutely said, yeah, I did that. This is what I got voted in for. Like, he says the bad things out loud.
That's because there's no decorum anymore. There's no sense of moral, I don't know, like, you know what I mean?
It's
like,
fake moral outrage. They're just using this fake moral outrage to, like, move their party line and to get their political objectives in place.
In further news, just when I thought I'd weeded out all of the transphobes and all of the super Trump supporting righties from my social media, our lovely heroine, Leah Thomas, won some swimming stuff in women's swimming. Things that nobody has ever given a shit about before. I want to say people probably follow bowling more than they follow women's sports of any kind, much less swimming. But suddenly, because we have a trans woman who has won a few races in her class and division, now suddenly everybody's up in arms about, let's say all the transphobic things out loud. And isn't this just a man who's decided to blah, blah, blah?
Win easy at women's sports because men are inherently better than this. And she's not a real woman. She's actually just a man playing dress up.
Right. Like, literally, name 3 other swimmers, male or female. I'll take it.
Michael Phelps.
There's one. That's my point. Nobody watches swimming. Nobody cares. I mean, they care. I get it. It's
I care during the Olympics, but I don't know who, like, there's not, like, people who won, like, Michael Phelps. It's sort of like golfing. Like, everybody knows who Tiger Woods is because he won all the time.
But suddenly everybody cares because it gives them something to be angry about. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. So, it's just not one of the big points. I actually had it written more eloquently than that, but you get the point of in my notes of what I'm saying.
It all comes back down to the fact that hate has been normalized again over the past few years.
Well, and if there's anything that Americans hate more than women, it's trans women.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Black trans women is the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. So if you're following this podcast, if you are here in our chat, I don't need to sell you on the fact that trans women are women. I think that's a given with this group. I don't have to inform you that the hormone cocktail you are on when you are transitioning, it changes your body chemistry and changes your body composition. So that way, trans men compete with men, trans women compete with women. And I would like to further say, why do we separate our sports based on something so arbitrary as gender? Doesn't that just seem weird to you and strange and awfully binary and very exclusive? Why don't we? This is Sherri's rant. I'm ending on Sherri's rant. Why don't we instead go on weight class and ability? Like, would make maybe sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
so my counterpoint to that, I do have a counterpoint to that, is in high school sports, because there isn't a whole lot of interest as far as watching women's sports or having women's sports, that because of Title IX, it created these sports for women and girls to participate in. And if we got rid of the gender binary or roles, women sports would probably go away.
Because it would just be sports.
Well, it would just mostly be like, what's the most popular? What can we get the most funding for? Where are we putting our resources? And it would be put into football. And, and I'm not saying that women can't be in football. I'm just saying that, like, right now, it's a predominantly male-dominated sport.
I think it would take a lot of work to undo the system that's been created. Ideally, I would love to see that system where, like, we can break down those barriers, but it's going to take all hands on deck for that, and I don't think that we would have all hands on deck for that, because there's, like, the bigger influence in all of this is money, right? Kind of like what you were saying, Ari, like, that money is really going to dictate what gets attention, who gets the priority, who gets the resources. So unless we can get people in those positions that will actually care about breaking those boundaries and being equitable.
Look, you guys, I'm not 9 years old. I understand why it won't happen.
Oh,
I'm just saying it should happen.
Oh, yeah, we're agreeing with you. Like, I agree with you.
Star Trek universe, let's make it happen. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk down to you, Sherri.
I sometimes wish I was 9 years old again. And life was so simple.
No, it wasn't. I got bullied as a kid.
That's a great segue, Ari. Dismal and depressing segue, but it is a segue, right?
So, and that's the news as I see it. I don't know.
That is the news.
I love your segment. It's
good. Me too. So we've talked on this podcast, and I've talked on my channel at length a lot about bullying and how, like, I've been bullied, like, throughout childhood and teenage years, and I've touched on here and there about bullying as an adult, and I think that we wanted to dedicate this entire episode to talking about how subtle bullying can be as an adult and how insidious it can be, and ultimately troubling in many different ways, right? So, I wanted to provide us some context first and think about, like, the bullying that we had to handle prior to adulthood. So what sorts of bullying did you guys have to deal with, if any? If you feel comfortable sharing, of course.
Ari, do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
How about you go first? Because I have been dominating the conversation.
Oh, I don't know. I think we've been pretty even.
I think you have.
Yeah, we're fine.
Okay.
So I was the fat kid. Always been the fat kid. Mm-hmm. And I got bullied for it a lot. And it was a lot of what we now know as microaggressions, which we didn't necessarily understand, in the 70s and 80s as what that was. But it was a lot of like, if somebody I knew was like working the lunch line, they'd give me a little extra food because they assumed I would want it. Or it was, you know, just little things that were said kind of behind my back, you know, oh, Sherri can do that because, you know, she's the bigger one or whatever. And it's like, you know, it's just little things that you just grow up with, and you just like all the little slings and arrows in your life. You know, that was the big one. We were poor too. We got a little bullied for that, but it was mostly being the fat kid. And in the 70s and 80s, like that was bodycon era. Like everything was skinny jeans and tight fitting clothing, and you know, everybody was fit. It was Twiggy, you know, just past the Twiggy era. So it was like Farrah Fawcett and super skinny people and really tight clothes. They didn't make clothes for fat kids. So everything was buttons popping open and jeans ripping, and there just wasn't any clothing out there. Oh, and if you did have to buy the the fat kid clothes, they were called Husky. That makes you feel good. To shop in the Husky section.
Oh my goodness. Ari, how about you?
I was also bullied for being the fat kid. And I wouldn't even say that, like, as an adult, I look at pictures of myself and I was like, what is everybody's problem? I look dang good. I had curves. I had, like, the moves. I looked pretty hot most of the time. And so, like, and the problem was the same thing with clothes, too, is that I was in high school during the age of low-rise pants. And if you're fat, basically what that does, if you're fat in a certain area, like on your tummy, it basically makes you look like really gross looking because it sits so low on, and they're trying to bring low-rise pants back, like Gen Z. And I'm like, why would you do that to yourself? It's not fun. So I would wear these clothes and they would be ill-fitting on my body. So it would like accentuate all of the parts that I felt most uncomfortable with about my body. And I would get made fun of. Like I would dress up at school and I got made fun of for being, they basically called me a pig in a dress. And I was like, I mean, I had that stuff before. And I had, when I was a little kid, like a little kid, you know, I was the tomboy type, so I always wanted to play with the boys and the girls, but most of the time I just wanted to play with the boys. And so I would get bullied because I'm just a girl. What are you doing here? Why are you, you know, is it because you're, you know, like you had, that I had ulterior motives or something for, you know, wanting to play with the boys and like kind of like go over that gender barrier. So it was just, it was just a lot of like BS. And like with my weight too, my parents would do microaggressions against me too, that like I didn't really think about. Like, you should wear dark clothing. Oh, your tummy's starting to hang out. Like maybe you should do some sit-ups and that'll help you. Or like maybe you should run more, or maybe you should do this more, or maybe like, or every time I would see my grandmother, she would like kind of like do some lip service and like slap me on my butt and go, oh, are you losing weight? And it's like, no, Grandma, I'm not losing weight.
And you have such a pretty face.
That's another one. Yep.
Backhanded compliment.
You have such pretty eyes. You have a great personality.
And so I just want to let you know, with the low-rise jeans coming back, that will mean in my lifetime I've had to suffer through them 3 times. Because they started in the 70s.
They cannot,
as far as I'm concerned, they should stay in the 70s.
They cannot take my high water pants from me.
So, well, thank you both for sharing those experiences. I know sometimes reflecting on bullying is not easy. Before I get to talking about mine, I want to touch on some of the comments because we've been getting a lot of comments. So Panda says, I've been bullied for being a lesbian when I was never close to being one. I'm a gay man, but nobody ever believed me. That's terrible. Kaishana says, I think bullies have their own trauma, but they should try to seek help before bullying others. Yes. And we're going to actually touch on that in a little bit as well. By the way, Kaishana, it's good to see you. Let's see. Panda says, I loved shopping in the Husky section, but it wasn't until years later I found out it didn't mean what I thought it did.
Oh, that's a great comment.
Kaishana says, well, first, Tiffany agrees with Kaishana that bullying is 100% wrong. I agree too. Kaishana says, I think we need to teach children how to interact with other kids who are different from them. It all starts with how they are taught about other kids from the adults in their life. Yes, hate is a learned experience. 100%. Let me see. Going down here. Lagiacris, Lagiacris, I think you've told me about your experiences, but I'm not going to rehash your experiences. That's for you to tell, not me, okay? But let's see. Kaishana says, I was bullied because I didn't hang out with kids. I stayed to myself because of my autism. It was hard to interact with others. It still is, even as an adult. Yeah. But thank you all for sharing your experiences so far. For me, well, I did a whole series on it. So if you ever want to watch that series titled Bullying: My Story of Survival, go check it out. It's like 8 videos. Don't judge me. The videos were terrible because I did them like 5 or 6 years ago. But so most of my bullying revolved around, of course, being gay. But the rest of it had to do with I was like very little in high school, so I was often bullied for like being like really short. I was bullied for my voice at length. I sometimes was bullied for like the various things that I would like or that I would obsess over, which I ended up being definitely a loner at certain points because of that. But like honestly, my worst bullying experiences center around instances of public humiliation where I would have people like publicly shame me or physically harm me or do a whole variety of different things like that, to the point where I did not even want to be seen in public because I was afraid that some public horrible thing would happen. And thank goodness for therapy, because that's been helping me with a lot of those residual issues that I'm realizing I still have from a long time ago because of that. So Tiffany says, I was bullied because of my visual impairment and my autistic behaviors and traits, even though I didn't know I was autistic at that time. Yes.
Do you know what I really hate as an adult?
What?
The people who bullied you as a kid send you friend requests on Facebook.
Oh my goodness. So speaking of that, I used to work at a coffee shop for like 10 years, and in my hometown, mind you, one of my high school bullies who like physically assaulted me in high school came in. I had to serve this person, and they gave me like this half-hearted apology.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, Donny, I never realized you'd gone through that. And in my mind, I'm like, well, you caused it, so yeah, it was a very awkward experience.
It's like that meme, are we the Nazis?
I had one sincere apology and one half-assed apology. My half-assed apology was much like that. It was at my 10-year class reunion, and he was just like, was I mean to you in high school? I feel like I was. If so, sorry, and then walked away. And that was like, go fuck yourself. Oh, he's a cop in Detroit now. Shocking. Anyone shocked? No. Raise your hands if you're surprised. So, yeah. The other one, though, he and I are actually good friends now. He came up to me. He ended up coming out later on. And so he was going through a lot of self-denial and a lot of stuff like that. And he saw I was very actively just myself and just openly myself because I was just sick of everybody's shit and just didn't care. And again, I don't want to shock you guys, but I used to dye my hair weird colors and had piercings and wore crazy jewelry and lots of bright colors. And I know I grew out of it.
I don't believe that, but okay.
It definitely was just a phase.
It was definitely just a phase. And so he used to make fun of me for that. And he used to bully me for that. And he used to bully me for being fat and, all this kind of stuff. And just like, whatever. It was either after high school or my senior year of high school. We ended up in overlapping friend circles. And I was like very standoffish with him. And he came over to me and he's just like, I am really sorry. He's like, I was so mean to you and I was so wrong. He's like, it doesn't make it okay. He's like, but this is what I was going through, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I really apologize. He's like, I know it was, you don't need to forgive me and blah, blah. Like just all the right things to say. You know what I mean? That I was just like, you know what? Second chances can happen. Like it's cool. Like we can work through this. So.
Well, I'm glad that one was a more wholesome apology, because like in a way those can be healing when we encounter those, for sure.
It was very healing, and now he's married and they have a cute little house up north. And
yeah. So Leo says, I wasn't bullied by students, but I was low-key harassed by one teacher whom I had a really vile history with. She did not like me. My mother tried constantly to get the school to try to get her to stop bothering and interacting with me, but she always found a way around it. She would always put me down. Oh my goodness. And then one day I heard her say to the administrator, I can't do this anymore. And then she was gone. I am so sorry about that. Well, so I'm glad that you mentioned harassment, because as we transition into talking about how bullying has manifested itself in adulthood, I want to talk about how one particular source that I have distinguishes bullying from harassment, although at the end the source does connect the fact that they are related, right? So the source specifically says that bullying and harassment are often used interchangeably when talking about hurtful or destructive behavior. They are comparable in terms of definition, but there is a significant difference. That difference is based on whether or not that bullying behavior is directed at a target who belongs to a protected class of individual. So those classes would be like based on color, race, religion, sex, age, disability, national origin, sexual orientation, etc. I personally think all of it is abuse in some fashion, right? I think that there could be debate about like certain semantics surrounding the terms, but ultimately, bullying or harassment is one person exerting some sort of power or influence over someone else with the intent of damaging them. Yeah, essentially, yes. So with that thought being in mind, like I think it would be interesting for us to talk a little bit about how bullying has changed for us as we've reached adulthood. So like have you experienced bullying as an adult, and what form has that taken? Whoever wants to go first.
Go ahead, Ari.
When I first moved to Seattle back in 2016, I worked for a temp agency, and so I got kind of a longer contract. It went from like June to December, so about 6 months. And I worked in a real estate office, and all of the women in that office were secretaries or assistants, or like they were just kind of like the underlings in the office, except for one manager who managed all of the secretaries, basically. So I was basically like filling in for one of the secretaries there while she, went through when she had her baby. So first of all, there was a lot of like power dynamic in the office that all of the real estate agents were white cis men, and they were of conservative leaning. And so all of the assistants were basically like white cis females of conservative leaning. So at a certain point, I feel like, and it was very quickly, that people just thought that I was there to like try and take over the person who I was filling in's job, and that I was just like, that I had this like ego going on, and that it was like undeserved ego because they thought I was just bad at my job, but they wouldn't like give me feedback about how they thought I was bad, because they thought that it seemed like they thought that it wasn't worth it to give me feedback about like how I could do to fix things. It was just sort of like this like atmosphere in the office that I was just like an idiot, and that they were babysitting me, and that I was not a capable, suitable human being to be around them. And so like that would come out in certain ways. It got to the point of where there would just be like this air around me of like just negativity, and like just, and so they would be like little things that they would say, or like they would be sitting next to me, but they wouldn't interact with me. They would send me an email instead. And so we would have these email conversations back and forth, these passive aggressive email conversations, instead of just like looking over and talking to me. So it's just, and like there was one day that they tried to replace me, and I was like, you know, I have this contract through December, like I don't understand why you're trying to let me go. And so like they kind of didn't want to make it bad with the temp agency or like have me complain to the temp agency. So they kept me on, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And it would get to the point of where the manager would come up to me at the end of the, like, as she was leaving, and she'd be like, "Is everything copacetic?" And I was like, it's hard to explain, like, how, I mean, I'm not explaining it very well, but it's just like this atmosphere that was created around me that I just wasn't good enough.
I just want to punch people that say copacetic. I just want to throw that out there.
Right.
Unironically say it.
Isn't it like, it's kind of an insidious word, isn't it?
Condescending, I think.
Yeah.
In a way, right?
Yeah, it is. Well, especially with the inflection in which this person seemed to be saying it in. Like, you can definitely tell when a person is intending to be petty or passive aggressive, right? And the difficult thing about passive aggressiveness is that sometimes you, like in your instances, Ari, those aren't something that are so outward enough where you can actually call them out as you see them, right? Like they're like these cumulative things that build up and build up and build up over time. That
so I just got to the point of where I just would run to the bathroom if it just got too overwhelming with me, and I'd go with my cell phone, and I would literally just sit in the stall for like half an hour to 45 minutes just to get away from it. And so they started following me into the bathroom too.
Jesus.
It was bad. Terrible. It was horrible.
It sounds horrible.
Yeah, that's terrible. I'm sorry that you had to go through that.
I mean, I'm glad I got out of there, and like that's why I told the person at the temp. I actually quit the temp agency because of it, and I said that I never wanted to work in real estate ever again.
Yeah,
I understand that.
Sherri, about you?
Well, I'm gonna need some more juice.
The grown-up juice.
Mommy's drinking grape juice. YouTube. All she's drinking is just grape juice. So, my last relationship. A monologue by Sherri Archer. This is chapter 47 of my, autobiography. So my last relationship, he was a bully, and I didn't catch on to that right away. I was very vulnerable. I had broken up with my ex-husband, and he and I had been together forever. And so I was very, very vulnerable. And I just kind of fell into the first person who would be nice to me kind of thing. And he was a little overly nice. Like he was super over attached. And very
call it love bombing.
Yep. There's a lot of love bombing going on. And, when my brother passed away in 2015, of course I was going through a whole lot, and he was just, and it started to become clear to me that he was like controlling me and like trying to control me. And it became clear to me when he like picked a fight with me at my brother's memorial, just to pick the fight, just to be on top and just to be in control of the situation. But he was very good at gaslighting, and I didn't know that word at the time, but he was very good at gaslighting me, and he would always make it look like it was my fault, because he would do the whole, well, I don't know why, because then he would get calm, right? When he would finally push me to the point where I would be like yelling and screaming and irrational, then he would get super calm and be like, well, I don't know why you're so upset right now. Like, look, you're the one that's acting out. You're the one that's acting crazy. So you're the problem one. Like you're the,
that's called reactive abuse.
And he would like, so there was one night in particular, we were living together, and I couldn't get him out of my house. But I was like pretty much done. I was like ready to break up with him because I just needed some space. Like I just needed some space to like mourn my brother and not be under the control of this other human being. And buckle up, kids, by the way, this is not a fun story. And trigger warnings, all the things. Trigger warnings for pretty much everything. So I had some friends who were coming into town. So my friend Rebecca, she lived in Toronto at the time. She was coming into town. She wanted to know if anybody wanted to hang out. I was like, yeah, I do. So I set up a time in the middle of the week. Like Donnie knows, we have very flexible schedules, especially if we teach online. You can move things around and do things in the middle of the week if you need to. So I had friends coming in the middle of the week. I didn't have class the next day. Cool. Let's get together. Well, my now ex worked early in the morning, and I told him, I'm like, look, I have friends coming over. So you need to find other living arrangements. Like I said, by that point, we were pretty much broken up. We weren't sleeping together. I was like, you need to find someplace else to crash. Like, because I have friends coming over. I'm giving you notice, and I'd given him several weeks notice. The week of that party came up, and he comes up to me and he's just like, I spent all my money. Can you give me money for a hotel room? And I was like, no, I don't have money to pay for you and me. Like, I only have enough money to pay for my stuff. So it turns into this big fight, and I'm the problem because I wasn't able to pay for that for him, blah, blah, blah. So I end up on the floor in my bedroom with my back against the wall crying because he just like all the worst things, that you've ever confessed to somebody, with all the love bombing and all the, let's know everything about everybody, let's know everything about each other. Tell me all your inner secrets.
That they twist, and they don't tell you anything about themselves, and then they twist it around later.
Mm-hmm. And so then just like everything, all the worst things that you think about yourself, being regurgitated back at you, screamed back at you, and it ended with him telling me that, I was going to end up sad and alone like my brother. I think I was going to die sad and alone like my brother. And I was just lost. So I texted some of my girlfriends, and bless her, my friend Bubbles, this tiny little blonde woman came in here to rescue me. She like marched in this house, walked into my room, grabbed me by the hand, mean mugging my ex the whole way. And we walked out, and she just like dragged me out of this house because I physically couldn't leave. Like I just felt trapped. I could not physically get up. So we ended up going out to the bar. Don't you know, he followed me to the bar, and he like stood there, arms folded, staring down at me at our table, like, and wouldn't leave. So the bartender had to kick him out. So then he's standing outside the door, staring inside the door, looking at me like, blah, blah, blah. So finally, my friend Chrissy, who is a sexual assault counselor, she went outside and told him, look, you have choices you can make. You can either go to jail tonight, or you can go home and deal with this tomorrow. Like Sherri's told you she doesn't want to talk to you. She's got other things going on. It's time for you to go. So he finally left. And then of course he starts blowing up my phone, and it just went on and on and on like this for months and months and months. It culminated with, on my birthday, he sexually assaulted me. I woke up and he was finishing. I was dead ass drunk. And yeah. Then I finally got him out of the house because I threatened him with jail time. So that's my story of adult bullying.
Wow.
Told you it was trigger warning, all the things.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry too. Thank you for using this space to be vulnerable, to share that. Like, that takes a lot of strength to do.
I was stunned that. No, sorry.
No, go ahead.
That's one of the worst things I've ever heard.
Bullying has so much to do with power. Mm-hmm. And when a person exerts that power and obsesses over it and makes it their primary weapon, they can do horrible things with it.
So when I get teary and choked up when I'm talking about what Yi is doing to Kim Kardashian, that's why, because it's very reminiscent of what I went through, and I am terrified for her on where this is going to end. And as Trevor Noah said, she's one of the richest, most powerful women in the world, and she can't make this stop. Where does that leave the rest of us?
Yeah. It's just like you sharing your story brought up some memories from my own experiences too. A trigger warning, everyone. Uh, so I was sexually assaulted not long after I came out, and for a good year afterward, my abuser stayed in contact with me because at that time, being so new in the gay community, I was conditioned to believe that what happened to me was normal and a rite of passage. Um, and it got to the point where this person, they would do anything that they could or say to make me feel like he was my only option, and would tell me that, like, well, nobody would want me now because I'm dirty and that I'm, not worthwhile, but him. And it all, like, and that is a form of bullying. It's manipulation, hands down, and it's scary how far that can go with people. Like, I can't fathom what it takes for a person to be in a headspace where they think that it's acceptable to talk about that or to say those types of things to somebody. So, or do those things for that matter. So, but I did want to go back and touch on a few comments because I noticed that we've been getting a few comments. Tiffany says, I recently left my Bible study group and social group at my church because I felt like I was being subtly bullied when it came to food. They made me feel bad whenever I wanted extra food. They, like, a lot of us were infantilized because of our disabilities. I was treated like I was a teenager. It was very triggering. I actually, I'll talk about this in a video sometime. Okay. Yeah, we look forward to that video whenever you feel comfortable sharing it. But yeah. So
that's awful, Tiffany. Just the people that are supposed to take care of you and support you, to shame you like that for no reason.
And it's like what we were talking about earlier with, having weird relationships with food. It's because you get people who, when you want seconds or extras, it's sort of like, well, haven't you eaten enough? And it's like,
right.
I'm listening to my body and what my body is telling me that I need, and you're telling me to ignore my hunger cues.
Yeah. So I guess like I feel like all of us, I mean, since we've endured a lot, like I think that gives us a perspective, unfortunately, a perspective that we can use to help other people maybe navigate the landscape of being a recipient of bullying, a little bit more, right? Like I guess my big question would be, in our capacity now, what could we do to stop bullying, at least? Like from the perspectives of victims, survivors, bystanders, and actual bullies, what can we do?
Well, the big thing is not to give into bystander syndrome. You know what I mean? If you see bullying happen, say something. Get the attention, like try not to draw the attention more to the person being bullied, but try to take it on yourself. Try to get the attention put on you, and so that person can have an out and get away. But don't give into bystander syndrome and just assume somebody else will take care of it and just leave that poor person to flounder on their own. They'll let you know if they're okay and they don't need help. You know what I mean? But if you at least can say something and at least take the pressure off for a few seconds, like that can mean everything.
Right. And that often will just cause a bully to shut down immediately, right?
Right.
Yeah. Because it immediately it damages this power dynamic that they think that they're creating.
One thing I've noticed with bullying situations is that the victim or the person being bullied, it sort of feels like you become in like this powerless situation, And really what I would like to say is like a sort of encouragement of some kind is that nobody can take your power away from you unless you give it to them. That like, even in the worst of situations, you still have options. And sometimes it means just physically moving away from the situation. Sometimes it means getting someone to get involved and help you out. Sometimes it just means like reminding yourself that you are still a good person, and that that what's happening to you is valid, or that your feelings are valid, and that what's happening to you is real, and that you don't have to put up with it. Like, you don't have to put up with anyone treating you poorly. I know it's hard to stand up for yourself when you feel like your power has been taken away. But just like, I just want to say, like, it's going to be okay. Like, you have more power than you think sometimes.
Yeah. Like, I don't want to fall into the realm of victim blaming somebody. If you feel powerless in that moment and you don't know how to get out of it, seek help, seek assistance. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you can feel stuck, or you can feel, you get into that, your vasovagal gets stuck, and so you get that fight, flight, or freeze. You get into that freeze. That's your body taking care of yourself. You know what I mean? That's your body. That's your natural instinct. And so, I want to caution some of that language, you know what I mean? Against like if you're frozen, that's natural and that's normal. There's nothing wrong with that. And you're feeling, like you're not in control. That is a normal feeling. So, don't beat yourself up over that, and seek help in any way you can. I'd like to put some hotlines in our in a pinned post in the future, for a lot of victims of abuse. There's one. I'll try to find it, and we could put it in the description or in a pinned post. Because there's one victim hotline that if you hit the escape button twice, it takes you back to a Google page. So that way, if your victimizer is there, it doesn't look like you're seeking help, and you won't put yourself into more danger. So, there's things like that out there. So definitely call someone, definitely get a hold of a expert. Your friends can be helped to a certain extent, but remember, your friends are not trained therapists. They're not trained professionals. You really need to reach out to somebody who has the training, who can help you get through this.
Right. And sometimes with friends as well, like, you have to be cautious because you don't want your trauma to exasperate theirs either. Because if you're at a place where you've had this trauma and you're not sure how to work through it, it could have some damaging effects on relationships. That's happened to me before as well. I know, and I don't think we've touched on this yet, but I did have it in our notes. Self-bullying. Like, self-bullying is another type of bullying that happens a lot during adulthood, right? Ari, were you about to add something to that?
Well, I was just going to wait till you were done. But basically, like, I see it as like gaslighting of sorts, that like you're telling yourself that what's happening isn't really what's happening. And that like people say things to themselves to like try to like smooth the situation over, like, oh, maybe I was just being too sensitive, or maybe they didn't mean it, or like maybe it was just like it wasn't how I thought it was. Like, maybe it just I was just experiencing it differently because I got upset.
Right. Well, and in many situations, like, it involves like the repeating of words that abusers say, right? Like, I know one thing that I've been grateful for having therapy over the past 2 years is like, I mean, and I've talked about this on here before. I have a huge issue with self-deprecation. Like, I self-deprecate using the exact same words that my bullies would tell me, that my abuser would tell me, that my my grandmother, who was very abusive, would tell me. And like, and it's been almost nightmarish unlearning that conditioning, because it almost became like an addiction or a comfort to be like, oh, well, I can cause myself this internal pain because it helps me think that I have control over my perception of the truth, which is the fact that I'm a terrible person, right? And I've been given tools to help work through that. It's helped. and I'm going in the right direction, but it's still there, and it's something that I'm going to have to be battling for a long time. And my therapist has encouraged me that it's okay. Like if you are a survivor of anything like that, like you can't snap your finger and it be
Right.
perfect. Like that's going to be part of you for the rest of your life. It's how you cope with it and how you make peace with that allows you to move forward in any way.
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to touch on some comments. So Tiffany says, do you know what else being a bystander does? It makes bullying even more humiliating, right? Because not only are you torn down by the bully, but you also have a willing and active audience participating. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And Tiffany says, I self-bully. I've had enough people teach me how to. I'm definitely guilty of self-bullying. It's so hard to unlearn that. It is. Taylor's here. Hello. Welcome.
So I just want to like say that I'm sorry if people thought that, or if I was victim blaming. I definitely don't.
No, not at all. I just didn't want anybody to take it that you were, but you absolutely weren't. Or at least I didn't take it that way, but I thought somebody else might hear that. You know what I mean?
I understand.
And
if it was taken that way, I do apologize. I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable because of what I said.
Oh. Well, and I again,
you're such a sweet soul, Ari.
You are.
Thank you so much. You
well,
are.
and see, the thing is, I've also kind of had this perspective of, well, surround yourself with the right people, you have the power, right? But the truth is, there are always instances where we may not be surrounded by the right people. We may not have that power. I think in time we end up realizing that we can reclaim that, or that we can have points where we can shape our spaces that we're in. But that takes that's a learning experience, right? I never learned how to do that until recently myself, right? So I think there is a place for positive affirmation, but there's just situations where some people aren't at the point to receive positive affirmation, right? If that makes sense. My key's wearing off.
Just know that your feelings are valid, and that that no matter how bad the situation is, if you find help, there are resources available to you to get the help you need.
And that's such an important message. I agree with you. Your feelings, whatever you're feeling in this moment, that's valid and that's correct. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you for putting a finer point on that. All right. That's so true.
Taylor says, I'm constantly worried I'm bullying without realizing it because I'm so blunt and forward. I also share in that worry sometimes. I know, because I have that personality where I'm introverted, but I try to be very extra to make people not realize that I'm introverted. I can be very forthright and direct, and sometimes people find that intimidating.
Yeah.
I always try to tell people, I'm like, if you feel comfortable, don't be afraid to call me out if you think that I'm being terse or too blunt, so on and so forth, because that can happen sometimes.
Me too. And also, my defense mechanism is humor. I don't want to shock you all, but I tend to. I know. I tend to blunt the arrows with humor. And so I know all these reveals tonight. And so that can come off very sarcastic, and it can come off hurtful. And I never, ever intend to be. And sometimes you hear the stupid thing that came out of your mouth and you're like, oh, son of a bitch.
That happens to me all the time. I think the fact, though, that if you are the type of person, if you can look back and examine what you say and adjust it accordingly, I think that immediately distinguishes you from being a bully, because bullies don't care. They don't care about how they come off, so on and so forth. If you do care and you are caring about how you engage with others empathetically, that is so significant in my opinion. Tiffany says, I really love hearing the sentence, your feelings are valid. It always makes me feel like my feelings aren't stupid. And it's just so comforting to hear. It's almost like an emotional hug. It is. So, I like, honestly, we have enough questions where we could probably do a part 2 to this topic later on.
I think so.
And I think that we should. But I would like to end on this final question of, are there any words of encouragement for people in a situation where they are being bullied? We've already kind of shared one, right? Like, your feelings are valid. Are there any other ones you can think of?
Well, like I said, reach out to a professional, and because your feelings are valid, and you deserve someone to listen to you and to be on your side and to be working on your team.
Right.
You deserve to have that person that's, walking alongside you and helping you down this path.
Yeah. I will reiterate what my therapist has told me, and I've mentioned it before. You have permission to exist and inhabit in the spaces that you're in.
Isn't that beautiful?
And when my therapist told me that, I cried all the way home, because the one thing that bullying does is it, one, robs you of your voice. It minimizes you, erases you, and it makes you feel like a lot of the time that you don't deserve to exist. So hearing that from someone is so unbelievably important. And if you have people in your life who are making you feel like you don't belong or don't deserve to exist, know that we right here in this space love you and support you and want you to know that you matter. Okay. All right. Do you have any other?
It's not just mommy's juice talking.
Right. Ari, any final thoughts from you, my friend?
No matter what happens or what you think about yourself or how you feel, just know that you are loved.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's at the end of the day, that's what it is.
Yeah. You are made of love and you are loved.
Yeah. Well, my friends, thank you as always for joining us. We really appreciate you being here. And like at the end of every week, and I know we're going to probably talk about this afterward because we always have a chat afterward. I think we really just value this safe space that we've created, where we can be ourselves and engage empathetically with one another. That's so important. So
if I may, I appreciate all of you for allowing the safe space for me to share as big as I did share. So I appreciate all of you, everybody in the chat. And, I just said a very private thing to the entire planet,
And I just commend you so much. Like that. Again, it takes so much strength to do that. But I do think that is a testament to what all of us have created here. That's so important.
If I could just say, I think you're amazing. And I think that your story is something good that needs to be told. So other people who hear this and think about the things that have happened to them, it makes them feel less alone in their situation, that it's more common than people think it is. And that it's something that sometimes people do that gaslighting where they think that their situation isn't as serious as they thought it was, or it isn't as bad as what they was. And this, you give people the space of going, this isn't right, this is bad.
And there is an after. It's not that space is not forever and ever. There is an after.
Yes. It may take time to get there, but you'll get there. 100%. All right, my friends, we love you all. Have a good rest of your night, and we will see you next Thursday. Mwah. Talk to you soon. Bye.